go. Great. Excellent.
Everyone's getting logged in. Give them a moment. Welcome.
All right. We had like 130 folks register, and so far we've got about 50. So we'll give it a few minutes for everyone to get in here and join us this afternoon.
We'll just say, as it says on the slide, this info session will be recorded and we will be posting it to YouTube. So feel free to come back and check out the link next week or share with your friends. Watch it over and over again over the next month. All right, looks like attendees have slowed down. Folks can continue to join as we go.
Great.
So welcome to RACC Arts3C Grant Info Session, Creativity, Cultivation, and Community in the Tri-County region. We're gonna get going today. English and Spanish transcripts will be available next week when we post the recording as well. And ASL and live captioning are available during the session. If you're having any challenges with the accessibility accommodations, please chime into the, I think it's the Q&A is actually what is enabled today, but we want to make sure everyone can get what they need to participate. And Molly has placed the tech, where did you put the URL?
I just put it in the chat.
To everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Shall we?
Yeah, let's get going.
All right.
So we're gonna introduce ourselves. My name is Ingrid Carlson. I'm a grants officer with the RACC grants team. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a middle-aged white woman with long brown hair. The photo of me on this slide is from about 10 years ago, but I still wear glasses and still smile a lot.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Helen Daltoso. I direct the grants program here at RACC. I don't think I can call myself middle-aged anymore. I am a white woman with gray-brown hair. Today I'm wearing it up. I have clear glasses and I'm wearing a blue denim shirt with a pointed collar. If Ingrid's photo is 10 years old, mine might actually be 15 years old. Thank you. Welcome again.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Molly. I am a grant specialist here at RACC. I use she and they pronouns. I am a white femme person in their 30s. I have long brown hair, glasses, and today I'm wearing a red top with white polka dots.
We do work to make our programs and services accessible to everyone in the community. If you have any accommodation needs for this whole process, please contact us at grants@racc.org for translation, interpretation, or other assistance you might need. We also can provide translation services by emailing info@racc.org. And before we go any further, I do want to just touch on the fact that we have some lovely photos throughout the whole presentation from artists in the community that have been supported with RACC grants. Many of them are from our Make, Learn, Build grant program of the last 2 years, and a few from project grants. And I just want to thank the artists for their lovely work, and happy to showcase them throughout the presentation. So what we're going to cover today is just a quick overview of the Regional Arts and Culture Council and an introduction to this new grant program. We're going to touch on the highlights from the grant guidelines, although I'll probably say this more than once. We encourage you strongly to read the guidelines thoroughly before you apply. We'll talk about the grant application and the different questions that we ask for your proposal, touch on opportunities for support through this whole process. And we will be taking questions throughout Zoom through the Q&A feature. So please put your questions in. We'll pause a couple times during the presentation and click or address the questions that come up.
So you have found the Regional Arts and Culture Council. Maybe you knew who we were and maybe you did not. We are lovingly referred to as RACC, and we're a 501c3 not-for-profit organization that serves artists, arts professionals, arts organizations, and K through 12 schools in Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington counties. I want to pause there and let everybody know that in order to access these opportunities that RACC is providing, this grant in particular, you must reside or be headquartered in the Tri-County region. Our mission is to enrich our communities through arts and culture. Pretty simple, encompasses a lot. You'll see our web address is right there. Check out our website if you have more questions or you want to know all the other programs that RACC offers. RACC makes value-based decisions. We are a grant-making team that utilizes RACC values, which we adopted a couple years ago as part of our strategic plan. Those values are listed here: accessibility, advocacy, equity, diversity, community, and innovation. The most important thing you should know is we've put some prompts there to let you know what we think about when we use these words as values. And we also are open to the community's interpretation of these words. And you're going to see this come back around at the end of this presentation because this is part of the application process.
Okay, this one's me, Molly here, to give you a quick introduction to the Arts3C grant. So you might be wondering why we call it that. Primarily the 3 C's stand for our service area, which is the Portland Metro Tri-County region. But you can also choose your own adventure about what you like to call to mind when you think of the 3 C's. We've put a couple options here like creation, cultivation, community. You could think about craft, creativity, connection. We probably put a few more in the FAQ, as this is the first question in the FAQ, which I will provide the link to shortly. But basically, this program is the next iteration of our programming, from project grants and professional development to Make, Learn, Build over the last 2 years, and now the Arts3C program. And this evolution is based on what we have heard from y'all and what we have learned together through our previous processes. In the Arts3C program, we're seeking to be flexible and responsive. And one of the ways in which we're trying to really pin down that flexibility is by having a single application that can meet a wide variety of needs in the arts community. So using this one process, this one application, you can request things like support for the creation of work, personal or business development, general expenses related to sustaining an individual arts practice or the ongoing operation of an arts organization. All those requests can fit under this one application because it's got some moving parts, which we'll dive into in a minute. But yeah, the application length and the requirements, the questions are responsive to the types of needs and the amount of funding you're asking for. Awards from this process are between $1,000 and $5,000 in $1,000 increments. That is the request amount you can select, which will change the application for you. And basically what that means is applying for more money means answering more questions. So let's get into it a little bit more in depth.
So who can apply? This is Ingrid. I'm going to cover this eligibility criteria that is fully outlined in the guidelines. Your Your legal address must be in the Tri-County region in Multnomah, Clackamas, or Washington County. That means as an organization or a business, you are headquartered here, and as an individual, you are living here with your legal address. You will support that by providing your W-9 form. And again, we accept applications and make grant awards to individual artists, to arts organizations, to arts businesses, to other organizations. We've opened the Arts3C Grant back open to schools applying directly for funds, and all types of organized entities, LLCs, sole proprietors, how you do business, we can make a grant award. You will be supporting that by providing RACC with the W-9 form if you are awarded a grant, and that should have that legal address in the Tri-County region. And then know right up front, if you receive a grant, you will receive, if you're anything other than a 501c3, you will receive a 1099 NEC for grant income at the end of the calendar year for reporting on your taxes. We don't want anybody to be surprised by the fact that a grant is considered income and it does get reported to the IRS. The last element of eligibility is that you have closed all existing grants by completing your final report paperwork before you can apply for a new grant from RACC. If you have received a project grant or a Make, Learn, Build or another past grant from RACC, wrap up that project and get that final report submitted, and know that it does take us a day or two to review and approve it. So you can't be turning in your final report on the day of the deadline and expect to be able to get in there and fill out the new application. So be planning ahead. So what can you apply for? Anything and everything. We want to hear from you, of course. Just as we've supported in the past, project grants, you can be making work in any discipline and sharing it with community, sharing it with audiences. We anticipate seeing quite a few sort of traditional projects coming in for the Arts3C grant. You can be an organization or a business or another entity that is producing an event that you'd like to hire artists to participate in. Those are eligible to come in for this grant, but we're also supporting those activities that were traditionally supported in professional development grants. So those types of activities that are helping you move forward in your artistic growth, such as, and we left some examples here, artist residencies, attending workshops, attending conferences. You may also be looking to invest in your business or your arts practice with tools or equipment, although we recommend you put that in the context of how you are making work and how that furthers your sort of the things you're working on. We also are inviting and welcoming general investment that's going to move you forward. We know at this time the need for support, core support for organizations, which might be your operations such as staff, rent, things that are supporting the day-to-day, as well as those types of support for you as an artist that are just allowing you time to sort of be an artist, such as childcare or invest in the studio time. We want to see those types of personal expenses, or we invite those types of applications like personal expenses to help you move forward. So what else? What are some of the funding and eligibility considerations? Again, fully outlined in the guidelines, but we want to touch on some highlights here. You can have one RACC grant at a time, meaning you fill out that final report before you apply for another RACC grant. And we are putting in a stipulation of one award a year. Our plan is to offer the Arts3C grant again in the springtime. So if you apply in the September cycle and you receive a grant, that is wonderful news. You will not be eligible to apply in the spring. We're going to open that open to other applicants, folks who haven't received an award yet, and then you'll be eligible again once you've turned in that final report. You'll be eligible by next September. So collaborations are welcome. We'd love to see artists working together, but only one eligible applicant should apply for a project. This being said, we often get the question, can I apply for my project or my activity, but also be listed as a collaborator on another person's proposal? Yes, you are welcome to be working on multiple activities in the community, but they should not be the same project. Again, one person step forward per project. The third bullet, art students at the time of application are not eligible. This is if you are an undergrad or a grad student in the arts. Please focus on that work, and then once you've received your certification or your degree, then you can come to RACC for your next adventure. General operating support organizations are not eligible to apply directly for the Arts3C. They can be a support organization or a partner on a proposal, but should not be applying directly for support in this program. Please keep in mind that the end date, and we'll talk more when we get to the application about start date and end date, but the end date needs to be after the grant cycle begins. So we aren't funding activities this fall that don't extend beyond in past December 30th. You have to be thinking about how the grant funds, which are announced on December 30th, will be affecting the end of your project. ADA accessibility is required. All activities need to happen in venues that are accessible to the full community. And funding from the counties goes to support applicants within those counties. So this is, just know that the Regional Arts and Culture Council is supported by an investment from the City of Portland, Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties, as well as some support from Metro and other fundraising sources. That investment from our government jurisdictions goes back out to the applicants in those counties. So particularly keeping in mind Clackamas County and Washington County. So the investment from those counties goes back out, and that can sometimes impact final award decisions. Grant awards are taxable income. I touched on this. Keep that in mind. Track your expenses for your projects. Be thinking about how you do business as an artist or as an entity, and then consult a tax professional for your business. And the last bullet, something to keep in mind, most grant awards will be at the level requested. When we were doing Make, Learn, Build, you received the amount of the grant funds that you requested. We anticipate that most awards will be what you at the level you requested, but we are just keeping it possible that we might award some a little less based on panel recommendations. We're just keeping that door open, but that it won't be a majority of the grant awards. Did I cover everything, teammates? All right. What are some other considerations? Oh no, that's what I just did. What is new and noteworthy? Things that are a little different with Arts3C as we evolve our support for the arts community in the region. Projects that have received past grant funding are okay. We've had this stipulation in the past that projects shouldn't come back to RACC, but we're experimenting with those longer projects, ones that might have multiple phases. You might want to return to RACC for the next phase of a much bigger project, and we're going to see what that looks like. So you are welcome to return to RACC as long as your final report paperwork has been filled out. Fiscal agents or fiscal sponsors are okay. We ask that you provide that memorandum of understanding between you and the fiscal agent or fiscal sponsor, who should also be legally headquartered in the Tri-County area. keeping the funds in our service area. Schools, PTA, and school districts are eligible to be applicants, although we do encourage direct support for artists and organizations that might be working in the schools. Travel, equipment, and food, which had all been ineligible in past grant cycles, are all eligible expenses. They can be listed in your budget for the activities that you're proposing. Keep in mind, this is the first time we are piloting this effort, that the higher your request amount, the more questions and supplementary materials. So keep that in mind as you think about what you need to get your project done and how you want to write about your activity. There is new review criteria. We're going to touch on that as we go through the slides through the info session, but I wanted to point it out. We've revised the language around what panelists will be using to score proposals. This is new about grant awards that are unclaimed after 12 months will be forfeit. If you applied for a Make, Learn, Build grant and you never heard whether you got a grant or not, log into your account and check. We have had a number of folks that have not claimed or communicated with RACC for over a year after their awards were made, and the grants team does not have time to track you down, so we're going to put this into the guidelines. Unclaimed funds will be forfeit, and RACC team members and RACC board have always been ineligible to apply, and we're just calling out that at this time RACC contractors, including the people we engage with as community review panelists, will not be eligible to apply at the due date of the grant application. Is that everything? Oof. Oh, you're muted, Helen, and I'm not. Let's see.
Sorry about that. Helen again here. I'm going to quickly go through the grant program process and review so you understand how we got here and where we're headed. The design phase of any grant begins with reinvesting time in assessing the past grant process. We did that internally. We get that feedback constantly from both applicants and recipients, as well as the community reviewers were all interviewed after their experience doing the review process. So we could hear from all angles what people thought of the Make, Learn, Build process. We also did a community-wide survey that had, I believe, over 450 respondents. So we did get quite a bit of feedback in that area as well. When we launch a grant, we let everybody know in multiple ways. So we're putting this out there on our own social media. We're making it available through direct emails to folks who have been past grant recipients to us. And we've gotten quite a bit of press for this particular grant. So I recognize that some people find out about things later than others do. And I also want to acknowledge that sometimes RACC's communication is not always as thorough, and our outreach continues to evolve. So please share this opportunity far and wide. If you are able to do so, we really appreciate it. The due date, there's always a due date. And I used to say, and it's non-negotiable. And then we just ran a process for urgency and stability grants for the American Rescue Plan funds. And we had to change the due date because of some issues with the engagement tools. So the due date is Wednesday, September 28th, always Wednesdays, always 5 p.m. If there is something wrong with our technology and the system, that is what might cause us to have to shift that date. But please don't ask us to make those kind of changes for you personally, and we will keep everybody up to date. And if you're in the system, you will hear about any changes. We will email you directly. The review process is something that begins once you submit your proposal. The RACC team goes in and vets all proposals for eligibility, and we begin the process of figuring out what panels applications will go on to. We're also in the process right now. We'll shortly launch our request for reviewers, and those individuals will be considered as part of the review process as well. Once they begin their process, they review outside of the panel. They do their own reading of your materials as well as view your supplemental materials. They score, they make comments in our system, and then they come together as a panel and have conversation together. We expect that almost all panelists will change their scores based on the conversation that they're having together as a group. Once they finish that process, they get another 24 to 48 hours to reconsider the grouping as a whole to change scores. We will make awards based on, I believe Ingrid already covered this, based on the funding that we have available. That's the budget that we have for this particular grant, and some other considerations. We make that determination together collectively, as well as take our top consideration is the ranking from the panel that they provide to us. We will make announcements on or before December 30th. That is our goal. Please try not to reach out to us if you haven't heard before December 30th. We know everybody wants to know, and we want you to know. So we're trying to get this done as swiftly as we can. So just hang in there with us. If you do not hear from us on December 30th, please check the system first to see if your award status has changed in our SurveyMonkey Apply tool. And if you do not see what you need to see there, then please feel free to reach out to us. The other thing that we consistently offer is feedback on the panel's comments on not only your proposal, but your concept, the preparation of your materials, and just have a conversation with you. The goal of these feedback sessions for us is to help you be in a good position to decide if you want to apply again to RACC. That's always where we're headed, is forward. So if that's why you would like feedback on a declined proposal, please reach out to us. If you want feedback on an awarded proposal, we're also happy to provide that feedback, but we do want to prioritize declined applicants so that they can be ready to apply in the next round. I see that my notes down here is that our panels are going to take place in November. That's what we're shooting for. And again, announcements are planned for December 30th of 2022.
So this is Ingrid again, and I'm just going to touch on the review criteria, and then we're going to take a break to answer some of the questions that have been popping in. I'm not going to read through all the review criteria, but what I want you to keep in mind is that this is what our community panel reviewers will be using to score your applications. In the past, we've had it's up to 7 points per bullet, and for all the requests, 1,000 through 5,000 will be scoring on our review criteria 1 through 5. And then if you are requesting $5,000, you will be answering an additional question about the core values, and you will have that additional review criteria for scores. So panelists score, what is that, out of 35 points for all requests, and then out of 42 if you're requesting the higher request amount of 5,000. The other thing I want to point out about review criteria is that there are questions in the application that relate directly to each one of these points. So have the criteria in front of you And as you get to the questions, know that that's where panelists will be going for the information, for that evidence of planning and proposal clarity, for that strength of the quality of art making. So we've tried to provide as much information as possible so that it is not a mystery, but keep that as you answer the questions, go back to the review criteria and think about how panelists will be applying what you've written about to the scores. All right.
Okay. Questions. All right. This is Helen. I'm going to be reading the questions. I'm going to do them in the order, and they'll just be anonymous. If you have popped a question into the feature and we're not answering it, please pop it in again, provide some greater clarity for us, and we'll catch it either this time around or the next time around. So I'm going to pop this one to Ingrid. Is it easier to receive a grant if we request less money?
I think it's easier to fill out an application if you request less money. There are fewer questions. It's more direct. It's more straightforward. The more complicated your project or the more funding you're requesting, just know that likely, while we're still kind of figuring out the exact paneling process, $5,000 requests are going to be going up against other $5,000 requests due to that review criteria. So they're going to be bigger and probably more complicated proposals. And the more, just there's so many elements. The more $5,000 requests that come in, the less money there is to expend. I don't know, it's up to you. It's what's the right fit for you.
Yeah, good answer. Okay, Molly, next one for you. Does one grant year apply to past grants such as the Urgency Stability Grant? Can I apply for an RACC if I received money from the Urgency Stability Grant?
That is a great question. I'm going to answer it in two parts. So one grant per year does not apply to Urgency Stability, specifically because Urgency Stability was a program that was actually City of Portland that RACC stepped in to help administer. So one grant per year applies to RACC's own grant making. We just happen to be tapped to distribute this special American Rescue Plan Act money through the Urgency Stability Program. So if you got an Urgency or Stability Award, you are absolutely welcome to apply for an RACC grant.
Okay, Ingrid and Molly, I'm just going to remind you guys, we're getting a ton of questions in here, so we may not be able to so fully answer all of these and get through everything we have. So just keep that in mind. By when does the activity need to be completed, Ingrid? Can you repeat?
There is no end date. You as an artist are putting that into your proposal, so it could be in 2023 or beyond, just after December 30th.
Okay, and then a follow-up on that one, Ingrid, from the same person. Can I use the funds for travel to further my learning in terms of professional development?
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Molly, can you speak more about how you support literature projects or literary projects? Specifically, if there's a particular kind of community engagement you prioritize from literary magazines, publications, or presses that goes beyond the printing and the distribution of material?
Sure. So we're going to get in depth with the questions later on, one of which is about any kind of public engagement, whether you have one or not. And there is not a right or wrong answer, but we are interested in knowing how your work either gets out into the community or impacts you personally. So depending on what the literary project might be, you could have multiple types of engagement. You could have, you're putting it out there through publishing, as you mentioned. You could have a live reading. You could do a recording on the internet. What we're looking for is if you do opt to have a public engagement, we're going to want to know things like, how do people find out about it? Is it free or does it cost money? Will there be accessibility services provided at the reading so people can participate with all their needs met? These are the kinds of community engagement pieces that could go along with a literary public engagement. I hope that answers your question. We also welcome folks, if they have a very specific or personal question, or we don't get to it here, to contact us via email, and we can get into your personal nitty-gritty with you another time, and we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, I'm gonna take this next one. Somebody's asking, do we do multiple panels? Yes, we do. We do a lot of panels. I think for Make, Learn, Build, maybe Molly, did the last cycle we do 15, 16 panels?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah. So it depends on the number of proposals we have. All right, now we've got somebody with 3 questions. Ingrid, I'm going to toss this to you. Does the single grant application format mean that less grants will be awarded?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Are there a fixed number of grant awards?
No, it all depends on how many people apply and how much they request.
Ooh, this is the good one. If a fiscal sponsor and a sponsored organization are applying for separate projects, can they both apply?
Yes, as long as the fiscal sponsor is not, it's not a, yes, we'll say yes, but if it might be better to get direct to know the specifics of your situation. For example, like if it's a theater company that's doing a show, and then they're being the fiscal sponsor for an artist who is also doing a show as part of their season, that's too close. You can't be the fiscal agent to sponsor it, to find a way to sponsor another production.
Okay. I think I'm gonna skip that question. I think that's a one for an offline. Are promotional materials like a show announcement or catalog eligible for funding?
Yes.
Okay, that's a follow-up. I'm going to move to the next one. My organization does all of its work in Portland for a Portland and regional audience, but my fiscal sponsor is in California. Is that a non-starter? Is there a third way?
If you,
I love a third way, a good third way.
If you as an individual artist are living and residing legally here in the Tri-County area, you can apply directly to support your project.
In terms of art making / experience, would you recommend this grant to new and emerging artists, Molly?
Absolutely. Yes.
Ingrid, Molly already answered a community engagement. Is there any preference for community engagement versus business improvement purpose of a grant, i.e. putting on public events versus improving a space with equipment investments?
There's no preference, but I'm going to direct you towards the review criteria that does include a point about engagement with the Tri-County region. So if you are applying for funds to invest in your studio, for example, keep in mind that you want to kind of extrapolate into what does an investment in you mean for your wider community? Does it mean you'll be able to provide classes, people access your space? Is it going to enhance your artistic practice such that you'll have an upcoming show to engage with new audiences? Like, there needs to be thinking not just about what the grant means to you, but why should public funds go to support that studio investment? What's the ripple effect?
Okay, gang, I just want to know, do you feel we still have time? Because we still have quite a few questions here and some of them are pretty detailed.
Well, I feel like we might actually address a lot if we get into some of the application nitty-gritty, and then we will have more time for questions after that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, this one is me, Molly. I'm going to introduce you to the RACC Opportunity Portal. So this is the online system that RACC uses for all of our applications. We send award emails through this system. You also fill out your final report here. So some of you may be familiar already. Our public art team at RACC also uses this system. So if you've applied for a RACC grant or a public art call, it's likely that you already have an account. If you do not have an account yet, you'll create one. And it's important to use the account that is connected to the entity that is applying for the grant. So if you are an individual applying for a personal project, you want to make sure that your account is set up as an individual. If you have done that in the past, but this time you are applying on behalf of a business entity, you want to make sure you have a different account for that business or arts organization that is set up as a business or arts organization account. If you're not sure and you're like, I think I have an account, maybe it was me, maybe it was a project I was involved in, that is definitely a good time to reach out to us in advance. We can help you look it up, and it is a lot easier to figure out if you're in the right account before you start filling out the application than it is to move things around after the fact. That can be really difficult. So if you have any questions about creating or using the right account, let us know. Basically, it's a pretty straightforward system, we hope. Once you get in, you should see this screen here with the Arts3C grant opportunity listed. If you do not see the opportunity listed when you log in, there are a couple things that could be going on. One, you might have an open RACC grant. So if you have a Make, Learn, Build that's still active and you haven't closed out, or maybe a project grant from a couple of years ago, that would be one reason you're not seeing the Arts3C opportunity. The other would be if your applicant profile is not set up in a way that shows you are eligible for this grant. This grant is open to individuals, arts businesses, arts organizations, other organizations, but you have to be in our service area in that 3C region. So if you need to check your eligibility profile, you go to your name, it says My Account, Eligibility, and you can check there, or we can help you with that as well. This is what it should look like if everything is going swimmingly and you are ready to start your application in our online system. Yes, that's what I got. Let's go to the next slide.
This is Ingrid, and I feel this is so important. We had a second slide. How you set up your applicant eligibility profile does have an impact on what RACC opportunities you have access to, as well as how that's going to impact the application for the Arts3C. So if you're not sure, if you have a past account, make sure you go in there and check your applicant eligibility profile. And think about how you do your work in the community and how you are branded, rather than how your business might be set up. So if you're doing your work as an individual artist, I recommend you check that box. If you're an arts organization, other nonprofit, arts business, other business, you can check one of those boxes in the applicant eligibility, and then think about writing your application in as that entity. Individual artists typically write from the I statement. I will be doing this. I will be participating in this. And arts organizations and arts businesses are typically the we, or this. This entity will be doing this. And it also will help factor into the panel grouping. We anticipate keeping individuals as a group as well as organizations together as a group, kind of within the panel process. But then the other consideration, once you get into the application, is how we might pay you that grant income. And that can be all types of different entities. So you might be thinking about yourself as an individual artist, but you've got an LLC, you have a sole proprietor. That factors in a little differently, or could be anything, and it's all good. We just want you to be thinking about it up front, because while we can do the paperwork to make changes after awards are made, it's just a little bit, it's a little difficult. It's just easier to think about it up front. So if you've got questions, please reach out directly to grants@racc.org.
Okay, we're going to pause to switch interpreters. I think I've got the video pinned. Excellent. Thank you for being here. We can keep going. Oh, this one's still me. All right. Okay, so Molly again, to talk about primary artistic discipline. So when you get into the application, one of the things you're going to encounter early on is this list of disciplines for you to select up to 2. You could do 1 if you want, or you can do 2 to indicate really what describes your proposal most accurately. What we're really using this for is for our team to help determine which panel is going to be the best fit for your proposal. So if you are applying for a sculpture project, we're going to put you with other visual art proposals. If you're applying for a dance film, you might want to check dance movement as primary and media arts as secondary, so that we can see, within the proposals, there are multiple, iterations that might land you in a proposal with a panel rather with the most similar proposals. So as you get into the application and are looking at this list, you will see that there are 3 types of media arts options listed. And that's particularly because we've seen a lot of growth in this space over the last 2.5 years. During social distancing or limited in-person activities, we've seen a lot more media complementing other disciplines. So I mentioned the dance film already, maybe a literary podcast, or some other virtual share of your work. You might want to consider if that is a significant enough part of your proposal that you want to check a secondary discipline in one of the media arts, or media arts could be your primary and you could check a different secondary. Lots of different options. Just think carefully about which best describes you so that you're fit with similar proposals. And, if you list one of these as an important part, be sure that you mention that in your narrative proposal, so that we know why those 2 categories are showing up as descriptors for your application. Okay.
All right, this is Ingrid. And the next part of the Arts3C grant application will be the request categories, which is what we are going to use to factor into the panel grouping. You will check off a few boxes that help detail your request. And the things to keep in mind is that more boxes, more checks is not necessarily better. You want to kind of keep this focused on what are the key things about your request, knowing that we're trying to sort of streamline how we do the panel groups. If you check a box, you should be detailing those elements of your request in your narrative. There are a couple categories that are sort of geared towards organization applicants versus individual applicants. So keep that in mind. That's noted here in the italics. And while there isn't a limit, 2 to 3 checks is plenty. That's my guidance. So the next part of the application, you're going to provide a working title that is optional. There are some requests that might not a working title might be too awkward, but if you are working on an art project or a specific activity, attending a specific residency, things like that, please provide us a working title. For your proposal, you will check your request amount, which will then populate which questions you see, and keep that in mind when you get to the budget task as well. And then you'll also provide a grant request timeframe, a start date and an end date. And you might be working on an activity or a project that has already started, and that is fine. The start date can be at any time. It can already be past, it could be in the future. It is something to, again, keep in mind as you write the narrative that you're addressing that time frame. The end date can be any time in the future after December 30th. If the end date ends up being somewhere before December 30th, you're likely to be deemed ineligible before the panel process. All right, so we're going to get into the questions. Everybody who's applying at all request levels, 1,000 and above, will see questions here. Question number 1 being, what do you need RACC grant funding to support? We just slimmed this down to the direct request. Tell us about what you need funding for. And please note that we ask provide as much detail and information as you can. We want to know the who, what, where, when. It's up to 1,200 characters. It's the biggest box in the whole application, to really sort of outline what your project, what your activity, whatever that sort of thing is that you as an artist or an arts organization or another entity doing arts work is applying for. What is this? Tell us about it. We're gonna note those character counts throughout the questions, but again, this is the big summary of what you are applying for a grant for. And question number 2, for all applicants, does your request involve other artists, admin support, staff, board, community groups, vendors, service providers, etc.? It's a yes/no question, and then that factors into what question populates next. If yes, tell us about who it is, what are they doing, and why did you select them? 1,000 characters, including spaces. If no, and you're the only artist involved, outline what you're doing as part of this activity. This is there are definitely things out there that will only involve the applicant themselves. But for the majority of proposals, I anticipate it's a yes, because you are not working alone. You're working with vendors, you're working with community groups, you're working with different spaces, and you should feel like you can answer yes and tell us about the community around you, the people involved, the vendors, all those things that are helping you get the activity done that you're applying for. Tell us about the artist residency space you're going to. Tell us about the other people you're planning to hire as part of your performance. All the things that are going to help make your activity come together. Anything else to add, Molly and Helen, for 1 and 2?
I just want to remind people that if you're preparing material, writing, drafting in a Word document or something else in advance of putting the information into SurveyMonkey Apply, just know that there is a variation in how characters might be counted in terms of number of characters in space. So this is just another opportunity to give yourself extra time so that once you cut and paste the material into the SurveyMonkey Apply, you can actually see that you've used up the correct amount of space, or that if something's getting cut off, you have time to address it. The other issue that we saw a lot in Make, Learn, Build is folks cutting and pasting the same answer into different questions. So again, I think this is about giving yourself enough time, right? If you're preparing material outside of the SurveyMonkey Apply, the RACC Opportunity Portal system, you're going to want to make sure that you're reviewing your material after you cut and paste.
Always good to remember. Okay, the next slide. Question number 3. How does this request impact you and move your artistic work forward? This is for all applicants, all types of activities. You as either the artist or the arts organization or the arts business or the school who's producing an arts activity or the other nonprofit that is engaging with artists. How does this, not the funding request, but the activity you are applying for, move your work in the arts community forward? There's a review criteria directly related to this. So 1,000 characters with no spaces, to think about and reply to that. And then question number 4, again, for everybody, even the smaller request amounts. Will you engage with the public in the Portland Tri-County area in a presentation or activity as part of this proposal? Yes or no? And for the $1,000 and $2,000 requests, this is the last narrative question. If yes, tell us what your anticipated venue is, what the address with the zip code, so that we can verify where you're going, where you're going to be presenting. It can be a digital presentation or engagement. Tell us about your plan for that. 400 characters. And then we want to know about if the location is ADA accessible. If you don't know, you need to explain why you don't know. All right.
Okie dokie. So this is Molly again. As Ingrid mentioned on the previous slide, those questions are answered by all applicants. Now we're getting into the questions where the larger your request amount is, the more additional questions we ask in the application. So this next question on this slide, number 5, is for anyone who is requesting $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000 grants. And this is an additional follow-up question about public engagement. So if you recall, in question number 4 on the previous slide, it asks if you will have a public presentation or activity in the Tri-County region as part of your proposal. And right away, there is a follow-up question that's built into question number 4 based on whether or not you select yes or no. Now this question, question number 5, is also built into your response to the previous question. So if you're requesting more than $3,000, you will also have a second question to answer in relation to whether or not you have public engagement. And that question is, if you marked yes to number 4, you'll be asked here again to share who the audience is, who the audience are or participants are for the public engagement, how many people you're anticipating, what your plan is for reaching out to them in terms of promotion, distribution of materials, etc. If no, and there is no public engagement, you'll be asked how this grant investment will make a difference for your audiences or your local community. So again, there's no right answer. A public activity is not required, but we are looking to know how the broader Tri-County arts consuming and engaging activity will benefit from this investment in your proposal. And you have either 1,000 characters to answer either of those questions. It's an opportunity for you to make the case for why this is a good opportunity to support, regardless of whether or not you have a more, traditional or formal share out activity. So that is question number 5. The next set of questions are for folks requesting $4,000 and $5,000. So it's another level of information we're asking for. Number 6, question number 6 is just about your timeline, asking for the details about what's going to happen between the start and end dates that you specified at the beginning of your application. We're not asking for a day-by-day calendar. There's not space for that in this question. It's, again, 1,000 characters. So what we're looking for is key activities, benchmarks, dates of events or activities like the final presentation, or when you'll be complete based on what your goals are, just key dates, key parts of your timeline. Now, question number 7. This one is also related to your answer to question number 4 about public engagement. So it is asking, if you are having a presentation or activity for the public, please describe the accessibility considerations you're taking into account. That includes physical accessibility, financial, etc. And if you are not having a public activity, then the question asks you about what the long-term impact is on the artistic capacity of the applicant. So is that you, the individual, is it an entity that you are a part of? Again, no right or wrong answer, but just a different way to look at, if you're not having a public engagement, then what is the larger benefit that extends beyond, the immediate influx of funding? And we really teased this out a fair amount, the subsequent questions to number 4, we teased it out a lot so that folks who are not doing a public engagement have space to really share the importance and the impact of their activity or of their proposal, regardless. So just another space for you to make the case, either whether or not you're having a public engagement activity. Okay, that's it for me on this slide. And don't worry, folks, we are coming up on another pause for questions soon.
Hi, Helen. So this is a very special question, only for those very special folks who are applying for the $5,000 level. $5,000 gets you an additional question. So if you apply for 4,000, you don't have to answer this question. If you apply for 5, you get to answer this one. And here are the RACC values again. We're going to ask you to select which of the RACC core values apply to your proposal and explain the connection to those that are selected. So I want to preemptively, because I can tell by some of the questions, folks want to know what is more competitive. You can choose one of these and knock it out of the park. You can choose all 6 of them and give them all just a tiny little bit. What's important here is that we're supporting with this higher level some values connected and values based opportunities. And that even includes general operating support, right? There are values in that. The key here is to be mindful about what you're choosing here and write about it directly. Make that connection for the panelists so that they can see how this is innovative, or where community shows up. Where does diversity and equity show up? Is there an advocacy component to the opportunity? And where is accessibility in your project? And then finally, the closing statement. We've brought it back by popular demand, y'all. This is your opportunity. If we didn't ask you what you wanted us to ask you, this is the space where you get to put that information. Some things to remember. Try not to be redundant with other things you've already told us in the proposal. And oh, by the way, everybody gets an opportunity for the closing statement. Even the 1,000 can make a closing statement. These are best utilized as a point of passion or sales, like this is your closer. This is where you tell the reviewers what might be really motivating you with this particular opportunity. We've seen folks use this space to say, thank you, RACC. And while that is lovely, it is not necessary to ever thank RACC in your application. Do not use that real estate, that very special real estate, to give RACC a prop, give yourself a prop. One of the things that folks have told me they do with the closer is when they're working on their applications and they're going over, right? Like they're writing too much. Don't just delete. Cut and paste anything that you're not including in an answer and put it in a separate Word document, and then go back and look at that really amazing verbiage that you wrote and figure out, does some of this belong in my closing statement? Some people put quotes from past participants with the organization of the project. Those can be very lovely, but this is your space. This is your space to use. Okay, I have some more questions here, and feel free to pop in. We do have a little bit more, so we may have to cut here. And I'm gonna try, I feel like I'm being a little bit editorial here, and I apologize for that, but there are some of these that are very, very, very specific to the particular person that's writing. I'm gonna try to choose the ones up top that are perhaps germane to others in the group. Do equipment purchases have to already be made, or can they be planned into the grant application and then purchased with potential grant funding? Molly?
Sure. So I'm going to give two answers. If you're only requesting equipment funding, you remember your end date has to be after grant awards are announced. So if the bulk of your proposal is like, this is what I need and it's this piece, and you've already bought it, then your end date isn't really after December 30th, right? So make sure that you're paying attention to that. But if it's a part of your proposal, you may start your proposed activity or requested what have you before submitting your application. So if you're underway, you've got your photo scanner, but you haven't done this part yet, that is fine. So the answer is pretty much yes.
Okay. So Ingrid, and I'm gonna use the specificity here, but I think you can apply this to everything. To complete my film, I need to put charges onto a credit card. Those funds will have already been spent, or rather charged, before the December 30th award announcement. While those charges can be documented now with the application, can those amounts be applied to the grant?
You are welcome to put those costs into your budget and then show that you've covered them with applicant cash or covered them with other sources in your contributions. How you do your business of covering expenses with a grant is not something RACC gets in the middle of. Maybe
Okay.
talk to me directly.
Okay.
I don't know.
This
You're throwing me
is
off with a credit card. I'm not sure how to make that broader.
Okay, perhaps that person can follow up with you specifically. This is a terrific question. If we're applying for a project that's already received RACC funding, are you looking for variations on the project, elaborations, etc., or can we just apply for the same project? For example, I'm hoping to apply to print a second edition of my book. Ingrid.
Yes, if you have finished your reporting out on the first edition that may have been supported by a RACC grant, you are welcome to apply for the opportunity to do a second run with support from the RACC Arts3C grant. It doesn't have to be changed in any other way, but you do have to answer the questions about impact for you and the community.
Okay, Molly, this one's for you. What is the difference between a cultural event and a live performance?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me just switch our pins really quick. I'm not stalling, I promise. Okay. I suppose the Venn diagram overlap is pretty large. Many cultural events could be live performances, and many live performances could be cultural events, but it's not a circle. Your cultural event might not include a performance aspect. It could be, you know, a presentation is kind of like a performance. It could be a booth presenting information. It could be an online activity or a panel. I guess performance makes me think of one direction as well, of sharing outward. So cultural events could include more back and forth. But yeah, it's a Venn diagram. And Ingrid, please help me out.
We wanted to be sure to have an area for things like the Peruvian festival, or actually specific culture-based events. A live performance might be embedded in a cultural festival or event, but some cultural events might be more food and culture-based. Wanted there to be a space for that. Narrow down. If it's about a live performance, check the live performance box.
Okay, moving on here. Ingrid, should we name others involved, even if the grant will not be used to support their involvement?
There's a whole question about naming who's involved and what they're doing for the project, but if they're not involved in the project, don't involve them in the grant. I'm not. I think I need more specifics.
I love this question. The organization I work for is applying for a RACC grant for a specific project. Separately, I am applying for a grant for my own personal art and community involvement. Is this acceptable?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. You can work for somebody and you can be an individual artist. And that's what we love about the Regional Arts and Culture Council. Molly, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I'll just add, this is where the separate accounts in our online system is really important. So you'll have your personal account, you'll fill out all the information, and then the organization you work for will have their own account, and they'll fill out a separate application about whatever's going on over there. But yeah, be careful in the online system, just making sure you keep those separate. And if you have any questions, email or contact us, however you like.
I think this question bears, Ingrid, a short, another answer. Can you be awarded an amount less than what you applied for?
Technically, yes, but the majority of awards will be at the level requested. We want to give our community panel reviewers the opportunity to recommend some smaller awards, but it won't be the typical award.
Okay, and then I'm going to answer this last one, and then we're going to go on, because there are a couple that I think might be addressed when we talk about budget. This last question is, are the RACC core values defined beyond just the single words or short phrases? No, they're not. We do and are aware that everybody interprets things differently. And our discovery in working with our community reviewers when they were applying values in Make, Learn, Build is mostly they were similar, but not entirely, right? So we are being very open as to what we mean when we say these things. And by that, I mean, we are open for your interpretation of what innovation is. If you go onto our website, you will see that our values are there along with our vision, mission, and some other interesting information that we put forward. It's really just an acknowledgement that different communities, different individuals have different takes on what these words mean, and that's completely wonderful and acceptable as long as you can define what that is for yourself, your organization, and what it is you're applying for. Okay. I think that's where we are for the questions right now, because we have a few more slides for you, a few more treats.
Okay, this is Ingrid, and I'm going to talk briefly about the budget. This is one of the tasks for the application, and there is quite a bit more information and instructions listed in the guidelines and in the online account. So make sure you read that before you dive into your budget. There's some examples of what we mean or what we're looking for with regard to the item description or source description. You will list all the proposal costs for your activity, all the expenses, more so than you might be requesting for the grant. We want to see it all. And maybe this is what that film question was about. If you're not, or it was the who do we list other vendors or other participants, other collaborators. Even if your grant funds are not going specifically to something as part of your activity, list all the costs for the activity. And then you will have the opportunity to list your proposal contributions, other fundraising efforts. The first line is your RACC grant, and this should line up with the box you checked about the grant request in the application. You'll put that amount in line 1, and then you'll list other sources of cash, other grants you may be pursuing, other fundraising efforts, your Patreon supporters, other things, merchandise sales. There's workshop fees, whatever seems appropriate to your activity, other contribution sources. And then you also have the opportunity to include in-kind support. But if you don't understand in-kind, don't get into it. It is complicated. If you list something that is a donated time or material, if that's listed as a contribution, it needs to go directly against something you listed in the expenses, or it doesn't balance. And we put that key component in the bright pink blob. Budget should balance your total expenses, all the costs to do this activity should equal your total contributions, the revenue anticipated to support the activity. That's the key thing about budgeting. And we're going to talk next about support materials, but your budget should be based on planning and research. And if you are requesting a higher grant amount, you will be asked to include that documentation that shows how you came up with these budget numbers. Was there, oh, okay. Was there anything else in the budget questions that might be important to touch on, Helen?
Yes. Oh, that was really good. I like how you did that, Ingrid. How much do you weigh projects that create their own income? For example, if we're selling our work and include that as a line item in the budget, does that make a project more compelling, or is it just as compelling if the full project funding is provided by RACC?
I think you should look at the review criteria. One of the review criteria is financial readiness. And part of that is having a budget that clearly outlines and supports what you are requesting. I think it is always a good thing to show other support, like selling your work or doing fundraiser. It shows community investment. It shows business planning. It is not required. Some projects or activities are small and straightforward, and you can only, it's not a bad thing to only include the RACC grant, but if you have that opportunity, do it. It's a good thing.
That's it.
Okay. So the last bit we want to touch on with the application is that everyone is requested to submit supplementary materials. If you are requesting 1,000 or 2,000 you only are required to do resumes or bios for the artists, for key staff, key collaborators involved. Please upload that material. You also are required to include work samples. Be thoughtful about what you include. There is more detail in the online system to kind of direct you about work samples. I think it says in there, you know, anticipate that folks will spend no more than 15 minutes looking through the supplemental materials. So think about like work that actually supports what you are requesting in the grant, related material, support documentation. Anyway, work that shows you can do the art making that you have proposed in the application. Folks who are applying for 3,000 and above are asked to provide cost documentation for their key expenses. So quotes or estimates that show that budget research. Make sure that if you're requesting a higher amount, you've done screen captures of that of your travel costs, or shown the email from your collaborator that confirms that they're willing to or they charge X amount of dollars for the work they're doing on the project. Like show that, show your work on developing that budget. It shouldn't just be a regurgitation of the same numbers. It's actually the outside sources that document how you came up with those amounts, the key outside expenses. And then there's an opportunity to upload support materials that are maybe beyond the work samples or cost documentation. It's optional, but as I wrote here, we wouldn't ask for it if it's not important to consider. Think about, do you need that letter from the artist residency that invites you to participate? Do you have some COVID protocols with regard to the venue you are going to be renting? Something that just sort of shows your planning and preparedness. And then if you are applying for operating expenses or personal expenses or using a fiscal sponsor, there's a couple other requirements to upload. Just want to acknowledge that they're in the application process, because those are a little bit, those are added elements to the paperwork. All right, I think that's it. I think we better get to questions.
I just wanted to add something really quick. Ingrid, you mentioned early that the reviewers will spend approximately 15 minutes looking at your work samples. So if you're including an audio or video file that's like an hour and a half long, or you know, even if it's 10 minutes, you want to direct their attention to a specific part. If it's your only work sample, maybe they play the whole 10 minutes. But if you have several where your character or your instrument or your person is involved that you want to direct their attention to, you can type a description in about each of your work samples, and it's very helpful to direct the reviewer's attention if you have longer work samples. That's what I got. Helen?
Yeah, we just got a question popped in about supplemental materials, so I'm going to go ahead and punt it over to y'all. Our project involves hiring artists in the community to complete a spring project, and I believe the word spring is important here. But we do not yet have applicants selected and won't until after the new year. We have past work samples from previous projects, but would not be able to include resumes for applications we don't have yet. I think that meant applicants who would be the artists that they would hire. Will this affect our application?
It sounds like you have work samples from past projects that for your organization or your entity. Include that so we can see the quality of your past work that you've produced. Include the bios or resumes for the key lead staff person or coordinator. And I would recommend that if you have a call for artists or an audition notice or whatever that is that you're going to use to engage with artists in the spring, you could include that as well. that's something that might go under other support documents, would be that call for artists.
Helen here. So just a few additional things to keep in mind as we're getting ready to wrap up. The reviews are online, so please check your links and passwords. If you recall, we said we would be paneling in November. So make sure if you have a live link, Vimeo or somewhere else that you are providing us, just make sure that it's not expired. We ask our reviewers to let us know if they can't get access to something, and mostly this happens and sometimes it doesn't. So please make sure that everything is live and that you've checked and double checked and triple checked that. RACC does have a conflict of interest policy. This is something that every single reviewer, we've called them reviewers and panelists, has to sign. And when somebody declares a conflict of interest with a particular applicant, they are not reading, not scoring, and also not commenting on that particular application. So that exists. Reminder that the RACC awards will take into account the budget we have, and that includes the budget we have for each jurisdictional area. Remember, Ingrid talked about Clackamas County, Washington County, City of Portland. The panel rankings, so how it is your proposal fares on that day that the panel meets after they've done their rescore. And then we're also looking at underserved communities. We want to make sure that this money gets out as wide as possible, and RACC tracks those kinds of things on behalf of our funders who ask us to track these types of things. So that is also a consideration for us. Finally, everyone will be notified by email and online, and we ask that you remember to give us space in your inbox. We'll be there with your notification. And if you do not see it, please go in after the 30th and check in the portal, because we have to adjust everything in there to make sure that we are even doing these award emails. So your account would be marked with an awarded grant. All right. Anything else, Ingrid or Molly, on that one?
You got it.
All right, this is Molly, and this is my last slide that I'm very passionate about, which is your award and administration information. So we're happy to say that we were able to pay these grants in full upfront. So after the announcements are made on December 30th, you can hop right in if you're awarded and claim your funds. You also might decide to wait a little bit if for some reason you would like to claim your funds in a month or 2 months for your own purposes, or based on the tax year that you want these funds to be claimed in. We don't give tax advice. We're just making you aware that if you claim them on December 31st, you will be acknowledging and receiving them in that tax year, or if you wait and receive them in 2023, you'll receive them in that tax year. It's totally up to you when you claim your funds, but remember, if funds unclaimed after a full year will go back into the pot for future grants. So in order to claim your funds, you'll need to sign the grant agreement. It is found in the online system, or if needed, can be provided in physical form. You will need to provide RACC with a W-9 that matches the entity who applied and was awarded. So if, again, an individual, we're going to need your individual W-9. An organized entity, we're going to need the organized entity's W-9. This can get complicated. We won't go too crazy into it right now, but if you have questions about what we need in that space, you can contact us. And then you're going to decide how you want to collect the funds. This can be either physical check or direct deposit. If you select direct deposit, you'll need to fill out an additional ACH form. And that is available in our online system. We also have some fun little tutorials that we've been working on and publishing on YouTube that can walk you through what we need to know when you're filling out the grant agreement, the W-9, and we are soon going to have an ACH one as well. And we'll link to those in the award email. So once we have all of your paperwork and everything is correct, please plan for up to 20 business days from when we receive that paperwork to when you are going to have the funds in your possession. All right, that's getting the money. Now I'm going to switch the pins. Yeah. Okay, so now you've got the money. You're going to do your project. That's awesome. As you're going along, you might want to keep in mind the requirement that these grants have, which is to acknowledge support from RACC using our weapon or using our logo or a text phrase that we can provide you kind of a written canned response. And we'll send that information and a link to our website where you can download our logos in the award email. But be thinking about it as you go along. If you have an in-person activity, this can be a great time to put RACC's logo on a flyer or your posters. If you're having a virtual event or proposals that don't have a public engagement component, you can use social media to acknowledge the support. And this is important not to make us feel good, but to help other artists who encounter your work become aware of RACC. So maybe people attending your events might not know that you can get grant funds from this organization for them. And it also helps us in our advocacy efforts when we're showing the community, hey, look at all this stuff that RACC was able to support with the funds that we got from our government partners or our other fundraising activities. So it's not for our egos, but it is an important part of your process and great to think about ahead of time so you don't get to your final report and go, uh-oh. Speaking of the final report, this is required for all of the RACC grants after your funded activity is complete. Again, there is not a due date for your grant funded activity. The timeline that you assert in your application is yours to adjust. We know things come up. Timelines might get pushed back. We ask that you stay in communication with us if your timeline is changing dramatically. But once you're done, we ask that you don't hesitate to fill out your final report. Don't forget to do it because it is an important piece of becoming eligible again for RACC funding. You need to close out this grant before you can ask for another one. So in the final report, I saw a question about this earlier. What we ask you to talk about are things like the successes and challenges of the project or the funded activity. Did it go the way you thought it did? Did you navigate some totally unique circumstances? Yeah, just tell us how it went from your perspective. We also ask for a final budget. Oftentimes budgets are our best estimates at the time of the application and things do change. So we ask you to report back. Were you able to get the additional fundraising? Did something end up being less expensive than you planned for? That's all great. And again, the final budget also needs to balance. We asked for the documentation of that RACC acknowledgement. So that's why, you know, if you've got like a balloon with our logo on it or something, don't forget to take a picture. I don't think I've seen that yet, but anyway. And then we asked for documentation of the activity itself. So some photos that you took at the event or of the thing that you purchased or, you know, some scans of the work that you created, videos, articles about it, anything that you have available, including, you know, social media screenshots and that kind of thing, just depending on your own unique project that can look really different, but some documentation is important. Okay, so yeah, the final report, we ask that you do it within 45 days of completing your application so it doesn't get lost. And we do take these seriously. We read them, we talk about them with each other, we get excited, and we take your feedback really seriously. So please do invest some time in this last step. It matters to us. And yeah, there's an opportunity as well in the final report to offer some feedback, and we really read that and care a lot about it. So thank you for doing that. And then just remember, in the administration of your process, all grant funded activities, if they have an in-person component, at minimum must be ADA accessible. So RACC grant monies cannot be spent on activities in buildings or venues or spaces that are not ADA accessible. So again, ensure if you're going to perform in a building or if you're going to gather in a field, like you need to make sure that the spaces in which your RACC funded activities take place meet the ADA requirements as well. Okay, that's my last slide, but we've got one more for you.
And Ingrid's going to wrap it up with opportunities for support. If you provided a question today or something comes up and we weren't able to get to it or provide full detail, please email your questions to grants@racc.org. That goes to all of us on the grants team. I am taking the lead on the question responses, but you can reach out to any of us individually if you'd like to Helen, Molly, or myself. There's an FAQ. Molly provided the link in the chat, but it's online on the grants webpage. We are happy to provide translation services for the grant guidelines and application, as well as meet accessibility needs. Please let us know how we can support you. And this is key if you're new to RACC, to know that we provide grant draft review. You must get your narrative questions and your budget into the online system, and then no later than Tuesday, September 20th. It is first come, first served. We book these draft review sessions as they come in, although we do try to prioritize folks who have not received RACC funding before. Put it in the system, save it, do not submit, and then send an email to grants@racc.org that says you'd like to have a draft reviewed, and we will schedule a phone conversation with you to provide you feedback on the narrative. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it is a set of outside eyes to help you kind of make sure you're on the right track with what the questions are, what we're looking for. Think through what support material you might provide, make sure your budget lines up. We're looking at those kinds of things, and we're happy to do that. But again, Tuesday, September 20th, and I guarantee you that by Wednesday morning, I will be booked up every half hour from there until the deadline day, providing feedback. That's how many people ask for it, so get it done early. I know we're past time and need to wrap up, but I think there are a couple more questions that we could answer in the Q&A.
There's just one question. I went ahead and answered a couple directly. This question always comes up, so we may as well answer it. What is the total amount of funding available?
So we have a budget of $600,000 for this round of Arts3C grants. It's hard to say how many grants we'll make because we will see requests from 1,000 up to 5,000 request amount. But I will also say that based on the interest from Make, Learn, Build and the number of people who've gone in and started applications, it's going to be a large applicant pool. I imagine we'll be able to make between 175 to 200 awards out of the 600K that we have to award. That's what I anticipate. But I don't know. I imagine it's going to be more competitive than Make, Learn, Build, funding probably at about 40% of the proposals as opposed to half, which had been our previous goal. So keep all that in mind. And then we don't really know because this is a new grant program for RACC. We're figuring this stuff out. Any other questions?
That was it.
All right. Thank you all for being here and for sticking it out, those who made it to the end of the 90 minutes. Please reach out to grants@racc.org with your questions. That's what we're here for. We're here to help support you through this process.
Thank you all for coming. I also want to say thank you to our ASL and closed caption service providers. We're really grateful to have you here with us, and we will get this video up onto our YouTube in the next week, perhaps. That's our goal, with the full transcription and translation into Spanish as well.
Thank you, everyone.